Right guys, Man United have just beaten Leicester by 3-0 in a fairly simple game in the end. I think the first 20-25 minutes Leicester did put Man United under a lot of pressure, and I think that was, the failing point of this game for Leicester, in that they didn't score. They needed to get the goal whilst they were ahead, because with the form that United are in this season and the way they're playing, you're not going to be able to dominate, especially at Old Trafford, for a full 90 minutes. So, whilst they were, you're going to struggle to dominate for even half the game. So the fact that they didn't get the goal, and David De Gea did pull off 2 or 3 really good saves, was their downfall today, because they got in some good positions but they were wasteful. Kelechi Iheanacho had a poor game, I thought, up front. In terms of his holding up of the ball, he just was far too easy to deal with for Lindelof and Lisandro Martinez, and I think even the players around him, Barnes wasn't great today, and nor was Tete, and Tete's actually impressed me in the couple of games I've seen him play so far for Leicester. The only one who I thought looked to be on good form today was James Maddison, but unfortunately there were only a couple of occasions he could really get into good shooting positions. He was having to take fairly speculative efforts on goal. So yeah, it was definitely a tough day at the office for Leicester, in that they couldn't get the goal that they needed in that first half. But United managed to capitalise on this. The goal came from Wout Faes. I don't know what to think of Faes, because one game to the next, one moment I think he's a really good defender, in that he's wholehearted. He'll put a tackle in that'll stop a goal. He's willing to, that sort of Nemanja Vidic characteristic of being able to do anything for your team to win. He sort of has that, but Vidic also had this, way of calculating whether a risk was worth it for his team. But Faes doesn't seem to have that. It's just like, do now, think later with him a little bit. But he's definitely improved the Leicester defence, is one thing I would say. Like, if you look at how they were the first few games this season before they signed him, they were shocking. But since he's come in, he definitely has improved them. And I think Suter alongside him has definitely helped as well. I mean, today it wasn't their best show. In the first goal, it is a poor pass from Faes and gets caught out. And then there's a lack of communication in the Leicester defence of where to hold the defensive line in the end. Faes steps up there, giving Rashford the space in behind to play himself onside with Suter, and Rashford gets played through by a nice ball by Fernandes, and Rashford does what Rashford does then. I think one-on-one, if you're a goalkeeper right now, there's no scarier striker to come up against than Marcus Rashford, because he has this ability to strike a ball with unbelievable power but keep it on the ground and also make it bobble a little bit. If you strike a ball on the ground and it bobbles a little bit, it is incredibly hard for a goalkeeper to save, because it's incredibly hard for them to judge whereabouts in the air the ball is going to be once it's within their range to save it. Because if it stays below like half a yard off the ground, even 20 centimetres or something, even if the keeper gets a hand to it, there's a good chance it'll go through his gloves. And that's like a really good quality that Rashford has on how to strike a ball when he's at an angle on goal and try and find the bottom corner. That's one thing he's brilliant at, and also getting in behind. And yeah, I thought this was going to be a game which United might struggle with in the midfield, with how many players Leicester have looking to get forwards. They almost have a front four in this game of Tete, Maddison and Iheanacho and Barnes on the left. But Sabitzer and Fred, I thought, did reasonably well. I think the only questionable moment was should Sabitzer have been sent off just before half time for the tackle on Suter or Fass? It might have been Fass. For me, it's a red card, but he pulls out of it almost. So if he does that and doesn't pull out, it's got to be a red card, no decision. But because he sort of pulled out of it, it's almost like an orange card. Now, I don't think he actually got a yellow in the end because I'm not sure the ref saw it, and I don't think they gave it a really very thorough VAR check. But it's definitely a yellow because you cannot, make contact with studs that high on someone's knee. I think saying that it's a definite red is too far because he realises the mistake before he makes the real contact and does pull out of it. So I think you have to give him some credit there, Sabitzer, but it wasn't, the prettiest tackle ever, and I think he should have definitely been booked for it. But yeah, second half, United made a change at half time, bringing on Jadon Sancho for a Garnacho, and that just, changed the game completely, I think, because first half, I think overall it was a fairly even game. In fact, I think you could make a case for Leicester being the better side in the first half overall. It was just United were far more clinical. And second half, it was one-way traffic for the most of it. United just completely, changed the game. It was like whoever was attacking the Stretford end had the more success this game. And they got the second goal through Rashford once again. And this one, there was a question of offside. It wasn't too dissimilar for the first, except from it's the opposite side of the pitch. This time Rashford's coming from the left. It was initially disallowed for offside, but it was hard to tell based on the line because the defender that was playing Rashford on in the end was the other side of the pitch. So, and it was ridiculously tight. So it's one of them where it could have gone either way, I think. But they gave it, and to be fair, when it's like that and it's ridiculously hard to tell, I'm all for giving the goal, to be honest, because I think if you're giving this one offside, then it's almost like you're trying to look for an error in the goal. To be honest, I think if it's ridiculously hard to tell and there's really no way of knowing, I think the goal has to stand personally, and yeah, that made it 2-0. Game over at that point. Leicester very rarely tested De Gea in the second half, to be honest. And yeah, it was a disappointing game for Leicester in the end. I think it could have gone so differently if Leicester had managed to get the early goal. We've seen that when teams do get an early goal at Old Trafford, it does make it a lot harder for Man United, and that they just weren't able to in the end. Like, the best example of that is Leeds the other week when they drew 2-2 and managed to get an early goal in that game. It just, quietens Old Trafford and, makes it a lot more interesting. But Leicester were unable to do that today. And Sancho got the third for United. It was, it marked a brilliant second half cameo from him. It was a well-worked goal as well, some nice passing, and Bruno Fernandes squares it, and it's a good finish from Sancho. It's a finish of a confident player, a player who's got his confidence back, and I can understand why, to be honest, since he's come back into the team after a few months out, he has been a completely different player to what he has been, what he had been in his Man United career up until 3 months ago. So, I've always liked him as a player. I don't think there was any part of me that ever thought he was going to fail, because I've seen him and how good he was for Borussia Dortmund in his time in Germany, and it's just like a player that good can't fail. I know a lot of people will say, well, no one said that about Dele Alli a few years ago, but with Dele Alli, it almost seemed to be that he's almost let it get to his head, almost, and I don't think that's happened with Sancho. I think Sancho looks like a player who doesn't feel as though his potential's achieved yet, whereas Dele Alli, it almost seems like he was, concerned about how far, could he go much further than what he was already producing, which I think caused him to sort of, I don't know, just sort of not progress in his career and get a bit I don't know. I'd say get a bit complacent, but yeah, I think that's the right word, complacent. But I don't think that's happened with Sancho. I think he's struggled to adapt in England. I don't think it's a complacency issue. I think it's just the fact that he came into a very poor team last season in Man United, and this season they've been a lot better, and it's been a lot easier for him to come into the team. But yeah, he's made a huge difference. I think it could have been more than three for United in the end. Weghorst, although he had a brilliant game, and he in this midfield role he's playing almost in the last couple of games against Barca in the Europa League as well as this one. It seems to really suit him. It's a bit Joe Linton like how he's almost playing like a box to box role, despite being bought as this tall, physical striker. So yeah, it seems to work. I did again, like Joe Linton at Newcastle. I didn't see it coming, to be honest. So yeah, he's definitely proved he can do that. Dalot plays really well at right back. Got forwards really well at times as well. Shaw, Martinez, Lindelof, pretty much every Man United player on the pitch today played quite well. I felt the only one who really struggled to get into the game today was Garnacho, but with Garnacho at the minute, it's like very hit and miss, but I think that's what you come to expect of a teenager, to be honest. You can't expect him to perform week in, week out. Like I didn't see it because I was too young, but from what I've heard, I'm not going to compare Garnacho to Cristiano Ronaldo. It's far too early in his career, but to give an example of a teenage winger at Man United in the past 20 years or so, Cristiano Ronaldo, when he first came to Man United, showed that he had a lot of talent but wasn't very consistent until around 2006, I'd say. So, it can happen for him. And I think he's definitely got a part to play in this Man United squad anyway. But yeah, it's been a great run of form for United, and I hope that can continue in the next couple of games against Barcelona and Newcastle in the final. I think they've got to be heavy favourites in the final against Newcastle now, with the problems that Newcastle are facing with their squad going into that game. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.